I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. And this is Currents. Brooklyn's bishop celebrates 40 years as a priest.
It's an amazing thing how fast this 40 years went, and it's been a life of joy, really.
He'll also sit down with us for a look back.
You do remember when you're prostrate on the floor of the cathedral, that's when all the thoughts go through your mind.
And words of praise from some VIPs.
Congratulations, Bishop DiMarzio, on 40 years. Mazel tov.
Well, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us for this special edition of Currents, marking Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio's 40th anniversary as a priest.
That's right, it's a milestone by any measure, and the bishop himself marked that milestone on Sunday with a massive thanksgiving at St. James Cathedral.
My brothers and sisters, I welcome you here to this Cathedral Basilica on this beautiful day in which I have the great privilege of celebrating 40 years of priesthood. It's an amazing thing how fast this 40 years went, and it's been a life of joy, really, service, and now as a bishop for 14 years, that's even enhanced what I understand the priesthood to be. As I approach this 40th anniversary of my ordination as a priest, I wondered what to say at this celebration. So I looked at my files and I found my first Mass homily, which I preached myself on May 31st, 1970. That year was the Feast of Corpus Christi. And this is what I found, a handwritten homily. I began, "My people, I am your priest, and since I am, perhaps I can begin to explain to you what a priest is, from what I have read, studied, and begun to live. I'm not sure what I could have said with one day under my belt, but I tried. So after 40 years, I have some things more to say. But to my surprise, it probably is not so different from what I said 40 years ago. Being a priest, and I'm going to preach about it today, a priest is a man among men who is there in the midst of men and women to bring them to God. And that's what it's about. It's really bringing people to God. That's what a priest's life is. That's what his whole dedication is to be. Man's relationship to God is the greatest thing man has. And this is why a priest's life is so important. Becoming a bishop does not cancel out one's priesthood, but rather builds upon it. I would like them to say that I served the people of God well, that I sacrificed, and I hope I did try to sacrifice my life to make sure that I would be a good priest, a holy priest. And that's what that way I would like to be remembered.
Bishop DiMarzio is our favorite priest in our home. He's what the Catholic Church needs. He's a priest to help us keep our faith. I wish him many, many more years because he's a very special priest besides being a bishop.
I think since he's been here, he's getting to know the people, and the people are getting to know him.
When he does serve Mass, we come because he is so blessed and gifted. That's all I can tell you. Talking to the bishop is like talking to God.
He came to our parish in Jersey City, St. Nicholas, 40 years ago. It was his first parish, and we love him very much.
We wish him best of luck and hopefully another 40 years.
He's a wonderful, wonderful man. We're very appreciative to have somebody that is so dynamic and so concerned about everybody.
Well, clearly an important day for Bishop DiMarzio there and for all those who know him. We'll have much more on the bishop ahead. We'll be hearing some of his personal thoughts on his 40 years as a priest, and you may see a side of him that you've never seen before. All that and more coming up after the day's headlines.
But first, throughout the program, we will be bringing you some special messages saluting the bishop on his 40 years as a priest, and we begin with a tribute from a neighbor of ours just across the river.
Bishop DiMarzio, my brother, my friend, my neighbor, congratulations. I didn't know it was your 40th anniversary of priestly ordination. I didn't know you were that much older than me. I'm only celebrating 34 on June 19th, and here you're 40 years. We love you very much, and you're a great bishop, Nick. But you know what? Even before being a great bishop, you were a wonderful priest. And I still see in you a parish priest, a street priest who loves being with his people and who loves the sacraments and preaching and just rubbing shoulders with your brothers and sisters in Christ. You're a great example to us, and we appreciate. And here's to you, a chocolate chip cookie. Happy anniversary, all right?
Welcome back to this special edition of Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Coming up in just a bit, Bishop DiMarzio looks back at 40 years of the priesthood. But first, let's take a look at the day's headlines. Well, BP is continuing to try to plug the disastrous oil leak in the Gulf. This is almost a third of the fishing grounds in the area have been closed. And as CNN's Carol Costello reports, people are turning more and more to their faith to get them through this crisis.
Parishioners came to Our Lady of Grand Isle Catholic Church to ask God for the strength to deal with what might come next, a black tide that could destroy the community.
Of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
It's been difficult for Father Michael Tran to offer comfort. The level of anger is so high, he fears it might spiral out of control.
So you don't invoke BP's name in church?
I try not to, yeah.
Because you don't want to incite people any more than they are already.
Correct. They are already upset and they're frustrated, and I don't want to make it worse.
But that intense anger belies the complicated relationship with BP and Big Oil. On one hand, they're ready to throw the bums out. On the other hand, they know they need Big Oil to fuel the Gulf's economy. According to a University of Florida study, oil and gas interests account for $124 billion a year, or 53% of the money generated in the Gulf region. It's why the people at Megan's Snowball stand say, yeah, they're mad at BP, but not the whole oil industry, even though their business has melted away because of it.
You work in the oil field, or you are a trawler or a fisherman. That's how they live down here. That's what we live off of, and that's pretty much the way of life.
A way of life that is now threatened by BP, a partner many here blame for failing to take care of this beautiful place so everyone can profit from its riches. Back at Grand Isles Catholic Church, that partner's name, BP, may inflame, but that doesn't mean people aren't praying for BP all the same.
Your feelings about BP?
We're a community that thrives on seafood, but oil as well. And so we just want it all straightened out, and we want them to play by the rules, do it right.
Well, the Vatican has announced plans for the apostolic visitation of the Irish Church. Among those who will be involved, two high-profile American bishops, Boston Cardinal Sean O'Malley and New York Archbishop Timothy Dolan. Now, in related news, the Pope has accepted the resignation of an Irish-born archbishop in Nigeria who admitted to an affair. Archbishop Richard Burke acknowledged a relationship but denied that it began when the woman was a minor. New Yorkers are continuing to support recovery efforts in Haiti. Last Friday, the Grenada Independence Committee of New York presented Brooklyn Auxiliary Bishop Guy Sansaric with a heartfelt donation.
This is for the Haiti Relief Fund. At our annual Independence Dance, the suggestion came right there on the floor to pass a hat to raise funds for the Haiti community. And it was so overwhelming that in that short space of time, people did not come prepared to do that. We were able to collect $1,200, which we handed over to the Catholic Relief Association to be used in helping the people of Haiti.
This particular check will be used toward paying the fee for the transportation, the expedition of a large tent to the Church of Saint Therese in Pétionville that has been destroyed, and the school has also been destroyed, and the people are worshiping in open air, so they need that tent so that they can continue their service.
On behalf of all the Grenadians and the Independence Committee, we are pleased that we could make a contribution to assist the people of Haiti in the development.
Thank you. God bless you. The Catholic Church, the Catholic bishops are really committed to assist in the rebuilding of the schools and the churches, but there must first be a kind of intermediate period where they will build big places, meeting places where school can be conducted, services, religious services can be conducted. It's going to be a long-term process.
Well, to Miami now, where this weekend Father Alberto Coutier led his first service as an Episcopal priest. Coutier, you remember, left the Catholic Church last year following revelations of a romantic relationship. Coutier and his wife also announced that they are expecting their first child. And Thomas Wensky was installed today as Archbishop of Miami. Wensky is the first native of the Archdiocese to lead it. Archbishop Wensky is also a longtime friend of Brooklyn's own Bishop DiMarzio, and he sent us his good wishes for the bishop's 40th anniversary. Take a look.
I wish to express my congratulations to Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio for 40 years of priestly service. I've been privileged to know him for many of those years when he worked as a priest for the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. I knew him when he was auxiliary bishop in Newark, bishop in Camden, and now the Bishop of Brooklyn. He is a devoted shepherd of his people, and the people of Brooklyn are very blessed to have him as their leader. Bishop DiMarzio, ad multos annos.
Welcome back. Well, where were you in 1970? 40 years ago, when a young man named Nicholas DiMarzio was ordained a priest for the Archdiocese of Newark, things were a little bit different than they are today. That was the year that the voting age was lowered to 18. Chet Huntley also retired from the NBC Nightly News that year. The Baltimore Orioles won the World Series, and the Beatles released their 12th and their final album, Let It Be.
That's right. And back then, the median price of a new home was just $26,000.
Cheap.
My goodness, the median household income was just over $8,000 a year, and gas was only 36 cents a gallon. My, how times have changed. But they've changed just a little, or maybe a lot, and that includes in the church as well. Now, back in 1970, Paul VI was Pope. Mass attendance was still high, and in the U.S., just over 800 young men were ordained to the priesthood. That's nearly double the number of this year. One of those men, of course, would become the Bishop of Brooklyn. And tonight, he looks back and goes into the deep.
Bishop DiMarzio, thank you so much again for joining us on Currents today.
Good to be here.
We enjoy these Into the Deep segments. And today we're talking a little bit about your ordination. We're going back 40 years ago. Talk to us a little bit about what that day was like for you.
Well, you remember it because it is one of those highlights in your life, day of ordination, day of marriage, major events in somebody's lifetime. And I was 25 years old, wasn't 26 yet, almost 26, and it's a long time. And it's very memorable because you really are moved. You're preparing for so many years for the day, and you come with your classmates. We were 28, I think, that were ordained that day, a large group, and there's a lot of nice memories of what happened in the interaction between us. We were at the seminary, took us down by bus to the cathedral right there, and the words of the bishop was rather elderly at that time, having a lot of trouble reading even. So you remember that. But sure. Overall, I think you do remember when you're prostrate on the floor of the cathedral. That's when all the thoughts go through your mind. You know, this is what I'm being called to, and don't know what's ahead of you. So there are a lot of good memories.
Well, looking back on those memories, what in particular may stand out for you as some of the most significant experiences that you've had?
Well, I think serving people is clearly, that's why you become a priest. You want to serve God and his people. You want to serve the church. And just some of the things that have happened over the years. I got an email the other day, totally unexpected. I went to the diocesan site from somebody who I knew right in the first couple of years. It was an immigrant, came with his parents from Italy, and now he's returned to Italy, working for the U.S. government at the Navy base in Naples. And he found my name, I guess, through the internet, and just wrote a nice note, says, thank you for what you did for me when I came for my family. Well, it's kind of affirmation that you work with people, and we had a mass in Italian and different things. So those are nice things, and you do remember, I think, how you touch people's lives in so many different ways. So I think that's the
human connection.
The human connection, and that's the satisfaction of the priesthood, that you really are able to touch people when they need it.
Right. And what over these last 4 decades have you noticed has changed within the church?
Well, I was ordained just as the Vatican Council was concluded, so there were many changes in the liturgy and the way we approach the church, of how we look at the role of the laity, which is much improved. There's been a lot of changes. There's been a lot of difficult issues, too, that we faced. Less people coming to Mass, less children in our schools. There's been, over these years, a sense of loss in many areas. While at the same time, there's a renewed, I think, commitment to really teaching the faith as not something that's just cultural for people, but something that really moves their lives. So I think that's the real difference I've seen.
And along those lines, because clearly your love and connection with people is really what continues to really fuel you and sustain you, what would you say to some new young men who perhaps are considering a similar path?
Well, I think, again, discernment is important. Does God really want you to do this? And I can't say, I've never had an unhappy day. I've had difficult days in 40 years, but not an unhappy day. I never looked back and said, oh, gee, I wonder why I did this. No, it's been a joyful experience, a vocation, and I think that's how we can foster new vocations, because our priests have to appear joyful and be joyful in what they do. There are difficulties. There are going to be days you struggle, days that you might be, I would say, up against it.
Sure.
But not to take away the joy of the priesthood, which is really the thing that's so important to show, so that other people can be attracted.
I was going to say that's the last sort of question, but again, you just led right into it. Is really to really enjoy what you do is perhaps the best way to attract new people.
Sure. People want to follow happy people,
yes.
not sad people.
Right. Well, you're certainly a good example of that, Bishop DiMarzio. We thank you so much for being with us on Currents here today.
Good to be here again.
He definitely enjoys what he does, and he continues to reiterate that one of the things that he enjoys the most is being among the people.
Right.
And I think that that really comes through.
Yeah, and he's had plenty of opportunities in the past 40 years to do that. It's so interesting too to see how much has changed the past 40 years. Both of us were born during that time period. Yeah, that's true. And a lot changed, of course, within the church as well, as the bishop said, but he's always tried to be, joyful, no matter what's going on. As he said, he had difficult days, but not unhappy ones. So
correct.
There you go. Of course, you can read more from the bishop this week in the tablet. You can pick up the tablet, a copy of it, at the local parish there, or you can check it out online, thetablet.org.
Stay with us. There's much more ahead. But first, another congratulatory message from a familiar presence here in Brooklyn.
I'm Brooklyn Borough President Marty Markowitz, congratulating our Bishop DiMarzio on the 40th anniversary of his priestly ordination. Bishop DiMarzio may be from Newark, and by the way, I call that Brooklyn West, but just like the soon-to-be Brooklyn Nets, he hit the big time in Brooklyn, USA. In Brooklyn, our diversity is our strength, and over the past 40 years, Bishop DiMarzio has dedicated his life to serving immigrant, migrant, and refugee populations. Speaking around the world on issues affecting our most vulnerable communities. Today, Bishop DiMarzio oversees 1.8 million Catholics and this Jew as well, representing more than 160 nationalities in Brooklyn and our suburb, also known as Queens. And I can think of no better time than this, the Catholic Church's Year of the Priest, to celebrate his 4 decades as an incomparable spiritual leader and humanitarian. Congratulations, Bishop DiMarzio, on 40 years. Mazel tov. And with God's blessing, here's to 40 more. The best is yet to come.
A few months ago, Bishop DiMarzio sat down to offer a very personal reflection about his life as a priest and revealed a side of himself that most of us rarely get to see.
And this evening, to cap this special program, we bring you once again one man's remembrances of a life in the priesthood. In this year for priests, as a matter of fact, Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio is tonight's eyewitness.
To be a priest in today's world is no different than it's been over the centuries. The priest's job is to bring people to God. I guess the story of vocation starts as a very young boy. I live right across the street from the church. My confirmation, I got pushed ahead because I was in the 5th grade. I should have waited to the 7th grade, but since I knew my catechism so well, Sister said I could go ahead and get my confirmation in the 5th grade. So I was promoted at that time. So I even was excelling then in my understanding of Christian doctrine. It's hard to say if there was any one moment that convinced me that I should be a priest. And I think it was just a day-by-day affirmation that you had a vocation, and that's what God wanted you to do. The priest, his first Mass, is a special time. It's something you never will forget. It was a significant time in my life, and I remember it as if it was yesterday, and it was 40 years ago now. It was the Feast of Corpus Christi, which was a wonderful day to have a first Mass, the Feast of the Body and Blood of Christ. And I had my Mass in Sacred Heart Cathedral, where I was ordained, and where I received my confirmation. So it was very special to me to be in the same parish and in the cathedral.
Thank you.
I've basically had in 40 years 10 different assignments. So that's a lot of moving around, believe me. To be transferred from one diocese to another is like being transferred from one parish to another, except that the priests have an option to say, yes, I think I'd like to think about it, or maybe I'm not sure I can do this. The bishops are the most obedient of priests. We have no choice whatsoever. We just say, aye, aye, sir, and we take off. So it was a little bit of a surprise when I was asked to come to Brooklyn. But it's been a very happy transfer, and I've taken to it, I think, as a duck to water. So I'm doing my best, and I'm paddling pretty fast. The sacramental life that the bishop can exercise is different from the priest, but it exists. Contact with people is constant, so it's at a different level, but it is the same work of the priest. The bishop's work is not that much different. The people become the sounding board. They become the inspiration. That's what priests live for, to serve their people. During this year of the priest that we celebrate now, the Holy Father's asked the people to appreciate what the priesthood is, at the same time to ask the priest to be more conscious of what their responsibilities are and fulfill them with greater love and devotion. I think people have to come to the aid of the priests, first of all by prayer, and then by support, and then maybe perhaps by taking on some of these external forces that are so negative. People really do have to speak out about how they see their church portrayed and how they see their priests portrayed.
The body of Christ.
To me, the Eucharist means union with Christ in a way that is not possible except through the Eucharist. It's not just a function that we perform as a priest, it is the center of our lives. 40 years, 365 days a year, how many Masses is that? It never really becomes routine. As you grow older, as you deepen your spiritual life, I think it becomes even more meaningful.
Okay.
I think everyone in their life would say, well, what if I didn't do this or I did something else? But it doesn't last long, because you see what you've accomplished and what you mean to people and the real meaning of the priesthood. So hopefully my ministry is one that deals with people. Maybe to say that he was the people's bishop was a wonderful epitaph if I had to write one. So that would make me satisfied.
The people's bishop. I wonder how many christenings and how many marriages and how many. I wonder what his numbers are on that. I'm sure it's up in the hundreds.
Oh, it's gotta
perhaps
be.
the thousands.
It's got to be. I wonder if he keeps a tally. You know, okay, got one more. But you know, I mean, it's amazing all that he has been through in the past 40 years. I can't get over this too. The last time we saw it, I think I mentioned it, seeing those old family photos, how much he looks like his dad. Mm-hmm. You can just see it right there. So that family connection is obviously there. And you know, we talk about, and he talks about wanting to be remembered as the people's bishop and really being, you know, someone who is of the people, involved with the people and all of that. And you saw him there in that sea of people really doing what he says he loves to do, and get in there with the people, greet them, and just you know, make them all feel like they're so special and welcome and loved.
And as Marty Markowitz says, you know, Brooklyn West, from there to here, from
right.
Newark, right, from New Jersey over, and all kinds of people, because Brooklyn is filled with such diversity.
Yeah.
That's really what it's constituted of. And so we're fortunate to have, you know, him. He proudly, you know, acknowledges his Italian heritage, and you know, very much, as I'm an Italian, like I keep saying, he looks like some of my family members almost. You know, who knows? We might be from the same part of Italy, but you know, also very welcoming to the diversity that is in Brooklyn, in the diocese here.
Yeah, and you know, it's like every time we discover a new apostolate in the diocese, it's like, I didn't know this existed. Oh my gosh, there's a whole other group of people here, and you discover more and more diversity as you delve deeper into the diocese here. So yeah, it's very diverse. It's known as the City of Immigrants for a reason.
And as we mark Bishop DiMarzio's 40th anniversary as a priest, we also thought that we'd mention another anniversary right here at the Net. Today marks the 1-year anniversary of Currents.
Yes, it was 1 year ago tonight that we put out Into the Deep as the world's very first, and so far only, might I add, daily Catholic news show. Bishop DiMarzio, of course, was here to launch us on our way, and we're so grateful to him for making it all possible.
We really are. We're also very grateful to you who are taking this journey with us. We want to just thank you and congratulations again to Bishop DiMarzio. As they say, ad multos annos, to many years and many more. Until next time, I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night.